So we first had Iain, our next guest, on at Salon London in the very early days of Salon, and that was over a decade ago. And Iain is a consultant consultant psychiatrist, and author, and former fellow of All Souls College, Oxford. Iain's book, The Master and His Emissary, The Divided Brain and the Making of the Western World, explores the lateralization of the human brain and fuses biology, philosophy, history, psychiatry, and culture to explore his personal proposition that the left and right hemispheres have different ways of being, and that this has implications for culture and society. This book starts with the acknowledgement that the brain is structurally divided and that there must be an evolutionary advantage for this, that other mammals and birds also have a structurally divided brain, while simultaneously debunking earlier myths about the left hemisphere being associated with calculation, science, and rational thought, and the right hemisphere being associated with creative, dreaminess, and more fluid in its thinking style. Iain acknowledges that both hemispheres are involved with pretty much every single aspect of brain processing. Now, I think it's really important when we're talking about this to hold on to that key point, because as the book evolves, you talk about the differences in some detail, Iain, but really both hemispheres are involved in pretty much every aspect of processing. Now, I know it's a massive challenge to summarize your book, but could you start by explaining the proposition of your book to us and its concept?
Yes, it just struck me that there were some rather big unanswered questions, and I think good science starts from some puzzles, you know?
Yeah.
And one of them is, why is the brain asymmetrical, since the world it has to encounter and interpret for us doesn't have some sort of obvious asymmetry built into it, nor does the brain box, the skull. Why is the brain divided? Why is an organ that exists only to make connections whoppingly divided into two? And why is the main band of fibers that connects these two hemispheres of the brain, the corpus callosum, very largely concerned with inhibition? So that's really where I started from, asking these questions. And what I eventually came up with after about 20 years of research was that we all creatures, and every single creature that has a neural network, never mind a brain that we know of, has an asymmetrical one. So that's the first point. But every living creature has to be able to do two, on the surface, incompatible things at the same time. If you imagine a bird trying to pick up a seed against a background of grit, it's got to have very sharply focused, narrowly focused attention to a detail in order to accomplish this correctly, or to pick up a twig, or to catch prey. Whatever it's doing, it's got to be swift, targeted, and just looking at that one thing. But if that's all it's doing, it will be missing everything else that's going on in the world at the same time. And while it may catch its prey, it may become the prey of another predator. So it has to do the opposite thing at exactly the same time, to have a very broad, sustained, open, vigilant attention to the whole picture. And in fact, this is an impossible thing to do if you just have one neuronal mass. It will dispose its consciousness, such as it is, its awareness, in one or other way. But since we need to do both, we have to have two major neuronal masses to accomplish this.